So, dear students, we are going to see chi-square test for exponential distribution. So, previously we saw about chi-square test for Poisson distribution. Now we are going to see exponential distribution. So, in the previous section, the chi-square test had been applied on Poisson distribution, but it is when you use the Poisson is working with a full discrete distribution. But we can have a chi-square test to be applied to continuous distribution. If you want to apply it to continuous distribution, you have to use another procedure. So we use here exponential distribution. So when you use a continuous distribution, class intervals which have to be formed, they are to be formed in such a way that the probability of all class interval must be equal. The probability of all class interval has to be equal when you are using continuous distribution. So when we use a discrete distribution, class interval were of equal width. But for continuous intervals are these who must be equal. But here for discrete distribution, we use the class interval which has equal distribution. So we can use to have the class interval which are equal, must take pi, or the probability that a I value can happen. So pi will be equal to 1 divided by k. So you have to memorize this equation or formulas, because all of them will be used during the example. So then here, what does it mean? K is the number of class intervals. Class interval, if we are having 10 intervals, it means k will be equal to 10, and the pi will be the probability of each class interval. It means that is the probability that each class interval may occur. So we know that the expected frequency will be noted like EP, which will be equal to NPI, and the condition that it must be EI. This is the expected frequency. The expected frequency will be equal to NPI N multiplied by PI, and the value of expected frequency must be greater or equal to 5. It can be equal or greater than 5, never less than 5. So if you have this one, it means that N as pi is equal to 1 out of k, so this will be equal to N multiplied by 1 out of k, which is greater or equal to 5, which does mean, it means that if we take N this side, N will go to the denominator, and then it should be going to the denominator, but here as N as k, where we are seeing the value of k, so k will be equal to N divided by 5. But we will change the sign of what? The sign of the we'll have the opposite sign of the sign we are having here. So k has to be less or equal to N divided by 5. So it means that the width of the class interval must be, if you have a k is the width of the class interval, so its width must be less or equal to N divided by 5. This is the meaning. This is the meaning of this notation. So now, as we know that PDF, this function of exponential distribution, as you saw in the previous unit, fx will be equal to lambda multiplied by Euler 2 power minus lambda x. Yeah? The CDF will be equal to 1 minus Euler power minus lambda x. Then at the end of each class interval must have an end. So there will be an end point, the beginning point and the end point, and the value, some value of the distribution will occur in between them. So to calculate an end of class interval, we are going to calculate like this: if ai will be equal to minus 1 minus Euler to the power minus lambda ai. So it means that ai is the end point of the if interval. This is the end point. A is the end point of an interval. For example, I can have a1 it will be the end point of the first interval. So since if ei is the cumulative area from 0 to aei, so we can calculate the area from the interval 0 to ai. We calculate it using this notation f ai. It means that f ai will be equal to I multiplied by p, which is the probability. So ip will be equal to this formula for each I equal to 0, going from 0 till k. So if we are having this one, we can calculate the value of this one. So the value of this one will be equal to this, the 1 minus ip, because it has changed the side. So as it comes in the right side, it will be minus. So if I put minus this one, so it means if I put Euler, if I want to calculate the value of this Euler value, I know it, you won't know it. So if we take the value of the variable which are, or the parameter which are on the power here, so the left side, mathematically the left side must be used as log. Here we are going to have to put down the value on the power. If we put them down here immediately, according to the mathematical formula, it means that here in the right side we are going to use log e, logarithm. So it will be log e of 1 minus ip. So I can calculate this one. If I calculate this one, it means that I will here have minus 1 divided by lambda. Log e can be will be represented by ln, or logarithm is the same, no problem here, because ln is the representation for log e, it is the same. So this formula and this one is the same. So thus, for the help of k and ai, we will formulate the class interval. So according, if we are having k and ai, we are going to formulate the class interval. Then the given data are distributed to this interval for applying chi-square test. So let's see an example. We are going to apply all those formula to using an example. Having example 1, the if test will performed on a random sample of electronic components at 1.5 times the nominal voltage. So you're going to test what? Random sample of electronic. We are having different electronic components, or the components which must be used in an electronic equipment, like for example cards of a computer and so on. So we tested them, and we tested them at 1.5 times the nominal voltage. The nominal voltage, if it is 1, so the tests are performed 1.5 times. It means that the lifetime of a component equals to the time to the failure. It means that lifetime of a component, you can estimate lifetime of a component, and you give it, for example, 10 years. And you suppose that after 10 years, that component will fail or it will stop working. So it means that the lifetime here in the days will be has been given below. So we apply chi-square test to verify whether the given data follows the exponential distribution. We can use the chi-square test. This is a test which we will use to verify that the lifetime given, which has been set to the component, follows the exponential distribution or not. And you remember that the component, the life test, we performed at 1.5 times the nominal voltage. So here we are having different components. Here, for the first component, if it is in minutes or days, it is the number of days. Here they say it is the number of days in days. So the first component we live for 79.9 days. The second 3 days. The last one 4.5 days, like this. So what will be the solution? We are having here a distribution, but we don't know which type of distribution we are having. If we are estimating the number of the lifetime of components, we can check if the list provided follows Poisson distribution or exponential distribution. Here, in our case, we are going to check if this list is going to follow exponential distribution. So what will be as the solution? So let x be a random variable representing lifetime of electronic components in days. X will be lifetime, this one. So x will take all those values. So what will be the hypothesis? H0 is going to confirm and say that x is exponentially distributed. H0 to mean that it is when we are having x which is exponentially distributed. It means that this list is exponentially distributed. H1, it is when the x does not follow exponential distribution. So now we are going to test which one of them is true. Now to compute the interval, we should know the value for parameter lambda. So first we have to calculate the interval between the different values. It means that we take an interval according to the range, according to the range of the value of each one from the list. So first we have to know the parameter of lambda. So the exponential distribution, we know that the exponential distribution for exponential distribution, as we saw previously in the previous unit, the expectation or mean will be equal to 1 divided by lambda. It means that lambda will be equal to 1 divided by x. So here the mean will be equal 1 divided by lambda, and lambda will be equal to 1 divided by mean. So as we know that the mean will be equal to the summation of xi divided by n. So it means that the mean will be equal to the value of the list you have, the total, the summation of all the value we have in the list divided by n. So the value of xi, which are xi, this one, this is x0, x1, x2, this is the last x 49, because we are having a 50 values. So we add all this value, we add them. The summation will be, if you add them, we will find that the summation is 594.674. So we divide by n is it is 50, 50. So the mean will be equal to 11.9835. So lambda will be the opposite of this one. So this is, it will be 1 out of the mean, which will be equal to 0.0841. So now we can calculate the number of class interval k. So the number of class interval k must be less than k. The number of class interval must be less or equal to n divided by 5 by formula. So means that k is less or equal to 50, n is 50 divided by 5, so k must be less or equal to 10. So we take k is equal to 8, it means that p will be equal to 1 out of 8, so p will be equal to 0.125. So let's take k is equal to 80. This is a number we choose. You can choose any, no problem, 7 or 6. Here we take k is equal to 80. So p, if k is equal to 8, p will be equal to 1 divided by k, so it is 0.125. So the end points of each class interval ai should be computed. So how we are going to say how we compute it? So we know that a0 will be equal to 0, ak will be equal to k, and so on. So we have to use the formula, which one? ai will be equal to minus 1 out of lambda logarithm 1 minus I multiplied by p for I going from 0 to k. It means that a1 will be equal to minus 1 out of lambda we got that it is, we saw that is 0.0841, ln 1 minus I is 1, and then multiply by p which is 0.125. So how to calculate it? You know, you already know it. You can use a calculator like this in your computer. If we use a calculator like this, we are going to calculate this one, this first one. So what I have to have 1 multiplied by 0.125. It is equal to, it will be equal to 1. This is standard. You use scientific like this. It will be equal to 1, this one, minus 0.125, which is this one, and then it is 0.875. Then you can calculate. If you can see ln or logarithm. So let's check using the manual calculator, or you can use your own calculator. We are having 1 minus 0.125. So it means that I am going to have 1 minus 0 1 25, I will get 0 8 7 5. So I'm going to calculate ln of 0 8 7 5. I'm going to put ln 0 8 7 5. This is equal to this one. So I am going to divide by 0.084. Divided by 0.0841. I'm going to get this value 1.58 78. Okay, you get this minus 1. There's no problem because we have changed the sign here. There is minus 1, that is why. So if we take minus 1 and this minus 1, it will give us the positive. Okay, you calculate all of this like this. So A1 will be this one, A2 will be calculated here. The change will be this one, 2. This is 2, here 3. You continue till A7 because we are having 7 intervals. So the last one will be 24. So we take these and the end points. These are the end points. These are the end points. Take these end points of class interval. We create the class interval and the actual number of elements belonging to each of this class interval as shown in the following table. So we are going to have a class interval. So the first one we are having, the first one is A1 is 1.5878. So it will go from 0. We start from 0, 1.5878. The second one will start from 1.5878 till the second end point. The second end point is what? Is 3.4. So the third one will start from 3.4207 and it will go to this to 5.5 like that. So you continue like that till the end. So you see here we will continue till the last one. The last one will go from the last one till 1. Here we are having 100%. This is like 100. So what are the observed frequencies? If we check between the interval in the list given, we will find that we are having 19 values which are in this range here. So also between this range and this one and this interval, there are 10 values or 10 elements. So let's check where we don't have time. Let's check for this one. You can check the interval between 8.2419 and 11.6627. So we check which value in the list which has been provided, which is in this range. You check which is in between this. So we go in the list here. In the list, I start from here. This is not in the range. This one till here. We go here. You want to find it till here. There is nothing in between 8 and 11, but even here. So you have to check. But in the last column, I can find only 9003. So 9003 is in between 8 dot some value and 11 dot some value. So only we are having one element. That is why the frequency here is 1 here. If you continue, you check, you find that this range there are only 4 elements like that. Okay, total it will be 50. That is one. So to make sure that you have done it correctly, if you add the value, they will give the total value, which is n equal to 50. So what is the frequency? It is 6.25. How did we get 6.25? It will be like this is expected frequency, which is equal to NPI. NPI, it means that N it is 50, PI we saw that is equal to 0.125. So if we multiply with that, expected frequency is 6.25 for each I. So after getting that, we can calculate this as we did it for this correct distribution. So we get observe the frequency minus expected frequency power 2 out of expected frequency. If we do that, we find this for the first interval, we get this. If you add them, we will find it 390.60. So from the table here, the last value, the total will be chi-square test value, the last value. So we get 39.60. So the exponential distribution, we have to check if this distribution follows exponential distribution or not. So here on we are having one parameter. Which parameter? Lambda. So as it is 1, that is here in this formula you going to use 1 here. So the degree of freedom will be equal to k. K we supposed that k is 8 minus s. S is the number of parameters we are having. We are having 1 minus 1, which is already there in the formula. So we are able to find that the degree of freedom is 6. So now the level of significance will be how? The level of significance we got in the question that it is 5%, so it is 0.05. So in the chi-square table value, if we check, we are having chi-square test value when we are having level of significance 0.05 and the degree of freedom 6. It is 12.6. Let's check in the table. In the table, we go in the table. We are having 0.05 here. When the degree of freedom is 6, so we are going to see that it is 12, about 1250.59. So it is 12.6. Okay. Then so the value we find for chi-square test after calculation, and the value which is already there in the table, the value we got is greater than the one found in the table. As this one is greater, it means that H0 is rejected. It means that the given data are not exponentially distributed. So this is the conclusion. So we can get also the second example. The time in minutes required for 30 different employees to compute in the recorded number of hours worked during the week are given. We can record the number of hours done by different employees. It means that we are having a total of 30 employees. So we can compute them like this. This is the total hours worked by the different employees. This is the first one. This is the last one for 30. So they tell us that you have to use the chi-square test to test the hypothesis that those service time are exponentially distributed at 5% level of significance. So, and here we suppose that the number is k is equal to 6, and the critical value is 89.48. Let's check if we find the last value like this, which is 9.49. What is the solution? So H0, it is when we say that the x follows exponential distribution. Alternative hypothesis, it is the opposite, means that x does not follow. We are going to check which one is true. So as we did in the previous example, mean will be equal to the summation of xi out of n. If we add all those values, these values, if we add them, we will get 39.3. we divide by n, which is 30, the total number of employees. The solution will be 1.31. So lambda will be equal to the division of 1 and x, so it will be 1 out of mean, which will be equal to this value. So in the question we already have a k, so as k is equal to 60, p will be the division of 1 out of k. It means 1 divided by 60, it will be this one, this value. So the expected frequency will be also n multiplied by pi. It means 30 multiplied by 1 out of 60, it will be 5. So the expected frequency will be 5 for all intervals. So the first interval, it means that the first end point will be A1 will be equal to 1 minus 1 out of lambda, which is this value, n1 minus 1, which is IP 1 out of 60. You can get in the same manner as we did previously. We find this value. You continue till A5 because we are having 5 intervals. So how will we create the end point? Then we will start from 0 with the first end point. The first end point is this one. Will be this one. Will be this one. The second one will be this one, and so on. So the first interval will be 0, between 0 and 0.2388. The second one will be between 0.2388 t 0.5311 here. We will continue till the end. The last value will be the 51, this one. The interval between this one and the infinite, no problem. We can put 100, anything, no problem. So we can check how many values which are in this range. We find that it is 1 between 0.9 and 1.4. If you check, this is not there. This is not there. This is not there. You can check. You will check all values. So you will get that. It will be this one. So we're having only one value. So that is why we're having 1 here. So we will do 2 or intervals. Display frequency, we got 5. Then you will take observe the frequency minus expected frequency power 2 out of expected frequency. You will get this. The total will be 7.60. So chi-square test is equal to 7.60. Degree of freedom, we are having k minus s minus 1. K we got in the question, it is 60. S we are having only one parameter, it is 1, so it will be 4. So I am going to check in the table chi-square test when we are having a level of significance 5% and degree of freedom 4. I am going to check in the table. It is here. degree of freedom is 4, so I am coming, it will be 9.49. So it is the same as the one we suppose that the beginning. So the value we calculated the value is less than the value which is in the table. So as it is less, it means that our data x follows with exponential distribution. So H0 is accepted. That it means that those data is exponentially distributed. So if you test, if you see that the data is exponentially distributed, you are going to represent it in statistics using exponential distribution. So this is only a test. After getting the test, it means that you will know how you are going to present such data. Otherwise, if you present data without using this test, it means they can present data using wrong representation or distribution. Okay, now let's go to the unit 6, the last unit. Unit 6 is about verification and validation. It means that after simulating and modeling your system, you have to verify that the simulation results are correct and real, and that they reflect the real system. So these are one of the important and difficult tasks faced by model developers. So it means that verification and validation is very difficult. It means that these are tasks which are very difficult because you have to make sure that you have a correct simulation and models which reflect the real system. So those the verification and validation processes consist of the following components. There is a first verification. Verification and validation are different concepts, even if some people will be confused differentiating them. So verification is what? The verification is concerned with building the model right. The validation is the process for building a right model. These concepts are different. So to build model right, it means that it is the process of modeling something and make it right. It means that you have to build the model and make it right. So it will be utilized in the comparison of the conceptual model. We are having the conceptual model. Conceptual model is the model which you are having at the beginning, which is not verified. So the conceptual model means that it is the representation of the model, for example, on sheets of paper, for example. That's what is called conceptual. So, and then you compare what you have on your sheets of paper or on your boards to what you have entered into the computer. So you compare what is on the sheets of paper and what inside your computer, which implements that conception. So it will you will ask yourself for questions like this. Is the model implemented correctly in the computer? Is what inside the computer reflects really what is in your sheets of paper? If or you can ask yourself a question: are the input parameters and the logical structure of the model correctly represented? You are able to see the input parameters. The parameters, for example, we are seeing our parameters such as mean, and variance. So you are going to check if those parameters are correctly represented in the computer. But in validation, it means that we will be concerned with building the right model. Building the right model, it means that, for example, verification, you build model right. It means you can build a model which is not right and you make it right. It is like here, make it right. It means that you will build it with some mistakes, and then you will make it right after verifying it and correcting some error. You make it right. But if it is a validation, it means that you are giving a value to your model. So you build the right model. You build the right model means you build it step by step without making any mistake. So you build the right model at the beginning till the end. So it will be utilized to determine that a model is an accurate representation of the real system. Here you are able to check if the full model it reflects 100% the real system. So the validation will be achieved through calibration for the model. Here we are going to see to use calibration. The calibration is what? It is an iterative process. It is a looping process. It means that it is a process which will be repeating itself, and you continuously compare the model to the actual system behavior. And we are going to see discrepancies, the differences between these two systems. So it means which system, the system we are having, and the real one. So here it means verification. It means it is conceptual. Conceptual means that what we are having on sheets of paper, check if it is the same as the one we are having in the computer. But here it is what we are having in the computer reflects the real system. If we are modeling a bank, you are going to see the simulation. The computer reflects how the bank really works at the field. So you are going to see the difference between what you have in your computer and how the bank works really. So if there is some differences or there is some if you get some insights, it means that you see that there are some differences. You have to improve the model so that the model reflects the real system. So you have to repeat it until the accuracy of your model is judged to be acceptable. It means 100% reflecting the real system. So we're going to see what is called a model building, verification, and validation. So here we are going to have 3 major steps. So what are these in the model building, verification, and validation? We are going to observe the real system and the interaction among its various components and collecting data at the behavior. We observe the real system. We observe the bank. We go to the bank. We observe and see how it is working. The interaction between among the various components. How, for example, cashiers are working for other people like tellers and managers, and you are going to collect the behavior. And then you are going to imitate how they are working. So you are only going to observe. It means that observation alone does not help in understanding the system behavior. If you observe only, you won't have insight 100% about the behavior of the system. So you can't go there and observe and say the bank is working like this. No. You have to observe and then, but you have to ask people who are familiar with the system, people or employee working there. So you will question them, and you will gain the special knowledge about the system because they know 100% the system. So they explain the working of the system 100% to you clearly. After observing and getting some ideas, you have to construct a conceptual model according to what you gained in the step 1. It means that you will make some collection of assumption about the component. It means the component are not you won't have the component 100% how they work or how they interact. So you are going to have a assumption. Assumption, it means that approximation of how the components are interacting, how the system is structured. It means that what is the architecture of the structure of the system. So what are the hypotheses about the value for the model parameter have to be made? What are the hypotheses? So that one you are going to implement an operational model. After constructing a conceptual model, for example, on a sheet of paper or on the boards, you are going to implement an operational model in your computer, for example. So, for example, you are going to use a simulation software to simulate such a system, and then you incorporate the solution of the conceptual model into the world view. After that, you are going to have the solution and put them toward the view so that people can see how the back is working using some world view. What the view have? For example, if it is a simulation how the flight is working, you are going to have a game of the flight, so people will play such a game, for example. So, what is the verification of the simulation model? You have to verify. So, the verification will be performed in 3 major steps. The first one will be we are having a real system. The real system, you are going to observe the real system. After observing the real system, you are going to validate the system, and then you are going to validate the system using calibration. After validating the system, you are also going to use conceptual validation. It means that you will watch, observe everything, and then you will gain some insight of the system. Then you are going to validate them to see if really what you have written on the paper reflects really what you have in your computer. So the conceptual model will be like this. Assumption of the system component. You are going to provide assumption on the system components. It means that it must not be 100% the same. So there will be assumption, and you are going to provide a structural assumption which will define the interaction between the system components. It means that you want to provide everything about the system. You are going to provide the structure, the assumption about the structure, so the main component and the working process. Want to reflect 100% how the components reflect, how the components interact between them. And also we are going to think about the input parameter, like the one we got, we used in the previous unity, for example, mean and the variance and the other parameters. Also, you are going to use assumption. In the conceptual model, it means that you are going to use approximation, not it is not necessary to have 100% the reflection between the conceptual model and the real system. So after that, you are going to verify the model. What you have done here, you have to verify if they are correct. So you will go immediately into operational model. It means that into computer, into the simulation. The simulation will be done on the computer, or the simulation also can be done, as we saw, using mathematics. So in the form of modeling. So as you can see, you see that real system observation of the real system and the conceptual model will always work in parallel by comparing conceptual model to the operational model, which is simulation or what is going on inside your computer. So This step are the same as the step we got in the previous section. So we can have a verification for the simulation, verification of simulation. We can verify the simulation model. Here we are in the computer. We have to verify the simulation to see that the simulation there is no errors in our system. So the purpose of model verification is to assume that the conceptual model is reflected accurately in the operational model. We talked about this previously. The purpose of model verification is to assume that the conceptual model, what is on paper, reflects accurately what is said in computer. And you can have so many suggestions can be given by many people, either professionals doing the verification processes. So what are the suggestions? You have to have the computerized representation checked by someone other than its developer. If you are a developer, so this in the process of checking or verification, you have to bring someone else who is not who has not developed that system, and a professional which is going to check the computerized representation. Why? Because for you, if you are the developer, you won't see any mistake. But if you provide someone else, it means that it will be easy for him to detect some mistakes. You can also make a flow diagram which includes each logic of the possible action in system can take when an event occurs, and flow the model logic for each action for each event type. So you can make a flow diagram and show how the system will react according to the action, according to an event. For example, you can check, you can say if a user enters a long password, what the system, how the system will behave. You can say that the system will tell him this is a wrong password. You have to try 3 times like that. 3 minutes. We have closely examine. You have to examine the model output. You have to check the model output and under a variety of setting of input parameter. You have to check what the system will give you whenever you input such things. For example, you say if I enter 5, what the output will be. If I enter 6, what the output will be. If I enter a character in a text box of integers, what will happen. You can check that. So you have also a computerized representation. Print the input parameter at the end of the simulation to be sure that this parameter value have not been changed in the inventory. You can have a computerized representation. So you print out the input parameter. For example, the input parameter is the value we are going to enter, and then the output will be the results. So you have to change the input to see the different results, and see that if what you have imported have provided the output, because you can put data, but the data in the flow can change. If they change, it means that you will find a wrong output. For example, you can enter an integer, multiply by an integer, and you get out at the output you get a float. So you have to check that if the output will be integer also. You have to make the computerized representation for self-documenting as possible. You have also to compute self-documenting. Self-documenting means that it is a documentation which is then inside the computer, so that which will help users to indicate them how they have to work with your system. You have also to, if you have a computerized representation which is animation, so you are going to see that you are going to check if the animation will imitate the actual system. If you're having animation, for example, you are showing how people will be ordered in the queue. So, and you put people in, you draw people and you present the queue management using animation. You have to make sure that everything reflects the actual system, how people comes into the bank and how they are ordered in the queue. So those must be the same. They will be also interactive run controller. This is a debugger. Debugger, it means that it is an essential component of successful simulation model building. This is very important. The debugger, it is what? It is the best simulation. A debugger, it is like in a programming language. It will inform you whenever you make a mistake. It will say that this line you are typing, these are simple mistakes. See? So because everybody will make a mistake, so you have to have a debugger which will debug your program and show and suggest you the correction. So the debugger will be used to find and then correct the errors. In the following way. The simulation can be monitored as it progresses. It means whenever you can run the simulation, and the debugger will monitor the simulation as it progresses. It means when you are running it, as the simulation progresses in time, the debugger will monitor it progressively also. You can have attention which will be focused at a particular line of logic or multiple line. You can have when the debugger can show you the line or multiple line which has errors, and then it will highlight them. If it highlights them, it will help you to make a correction. Or you can say that values of model component can be observed. You see, like in programming, you're programming, for example, in Visual Basic. Then, if there is a mistake, for example, you see the debugger having a yellow color. If you point out of that line, it can show you the value of a variable. So, this can be done by a debugger here. So, you can pause also the simulation, and you can see the current value or status of the variable after pausing the simulation. You can see also attributes and so on. You can also suspend the simulation also. If you suspend it, if you pause it, you can view some information you need, or you can change the value you send to a variable if it's that they have some problem, or you can redirect entities. You can use also graphical interfaces are used for accomplishing verification validation. Yes, if you are having graphical interfaces, it means that it will be easy to observe the mistake and then make a necessary correction. So calibration in the validation of models, how to calibrate and validate. Verification and validation are distinct, but some people will confuse them and they think that they are the same concept. They are different, but even if they are different, they will be conducted simultaneously by the model. That means that the model will do both validation and verification. So validation will be the overall process of comparing the model and its behavior to the real system and its behavior. It means that validation will compare the overall process. It means that we will compare everything from our model, our computerized mode, to the real system. If you have a computerized bank, you are going to check. You are going to compare what you have simulated in your computer to how the bank really works, really. So, what is the calibration? Calibration, this is the overall. It means that you do totally a total verification. But calibration means it is iterative process. It is a process which you perform iteratively, step by step, and it will be done as when you are developing a model. The calibration will be done at each and every progress in your modeling. So what you are going to do, it is an iterative process. In this process, you compare the model to your system by adjusting by providing adjustment to the model. If you compare it to the real system, if there are some differences or it doesn't reflect the real system, you have to make adjustment, and then you compare again and again. So here we are going to see the relationship for the model calibration and the overall validation process. Here I am having a real system. I compare the model to reality. It means I compare my model. This is the initial model. It means at the beginning I compare it to the real system. So I am comparing it to the reality. So there are some differences I have to revise. In revising, I will have the first revision model. It means that after revising, I will have the first revision model. I then compare again to compare the revision model to the reality, to the real system. If there is also some differences or some mistake, again I revise. This will be the second revision. Then the second revision I will compare to the real system. I will continue doing this till my model reflects 100% the real system. So if they reflect 100%, so okay, I stop. So subjective, we can have subjective test. We can have subjective test or objective testing. Subjective testing, it means that it usually involves subjective means it involves people who have knowledge about the system, making judgment about the model and its output. So you will call some people who are professional in that field of the system you are studying, and then they come and judge your model and they see that it reflects really to the system, and they see that if there are some differences or mistakes. It's called subjective. It is called subjective because those people are not the developer of the model. It is you who is the developer. Objective test require data on the behavior of the system and the corresponding data produced by the model. Here, this objective test, it is a test done on the data of the system, and those data are produced by the model. So objective test means it comes from the system itself. Subjective, it comes from the people who are professional, who did not participate in the development of the system. Then statistical tests are performed to compare few aspects of the system data set with the same aspect of the model data set. Here, statistical tests will be used to compare some of the aspects of the system, not all, with also the same aspect of the model. It means if we check the system, the real system, and then we compare it with the model, but some aspect, not all. So, as Mr. Naylor and Finger, they formulated the three-step approach which has been widely followed. How? These people formulated a three-step approach which is used to test, to have subjective and objective test. The first one, it is build a model that has high face validity. So you have to build a model which is valuable. It means that it provides a very high validity. It means that which 100%, which is 100% the same as the real system. And then they talk that we have to validate the model as assumption. we have provided the assumption to the model. So if you have to see that if those assumptions are valid or not, because if the assumptions are not valid, it means that the assumptions are useless. You have to compare the model input output transformation to corresponding input output transformation with the real system. You have to put the input and output in your model and see that if they are corresponding with the input output of the real system. So whatever you have done in your model, you see that the same can be applied to the real system and provide the same output. So we can explain this. Build a model that has a high face validity. So I explained it previously, so we can continue. We can also see what they say here. The first goal of the simulation model is to construct a model that appears reasonable on its face to model user and that who are knowledgeable about the real system being simulated. Here, as we say, that which has high face validity, which has a very nice user interface, so that user will be comfortable using your system. So you have to provide a very nice user interface, and which provides the facility to perform any task the users wants. And the potential users of a model should be involved in a model construction from its conceptualization to its implementation. So don't forget to involve users, because users, they know what they want. They know they want. They're having some more thinking in their mind how they want the system would look like. So they will guide you. So they will help you have a useful input during the model development. If you are modeling the bank, you have to involve users in the bank. Who are the users? It can be a bank manager, it can be tellers, and so on. So here there will be sensitivity analysis. It can also be used to check the face validity for the model. Here you can, if you use sensitivity analysis, you are going to check the face of validity of the model, how the model looks like, and the model user will be asked whether the model behaves unexpectedly. You ask the user if what they wanted to see in the model is okay, or you have done what they wanted. It means that whenever you change something, you can ask users if the face they wanted to the model has been changed in an unexpected way. So if they say, if they tell you that there is a problem, so you have to change the face of the model. From the experience, from observations on the real system, the model user and the model builder would have an idea about the effect of change in the model. After experiencing from if you are having some observation to the real system, so you can know the effect which can be brought to the model if you do something different. So the validation of model assumption here. The model assumption can be any of structural assumption or data assumption. You can have assumption about the structure of the system or the data assumption or approximation. So it means that it involves the question of how the system operates, and usually involves the simplification in the observation of reality. For example, a queuing system, you assume the serving is FCFS. Here assumption means that here you want to take everything 100% as it is. You can have some assumption. For example, here you have an example here. The queuing system, you can assume that the serving to the customer will follow the first come, first served. Yeah. Because this is this is the first the serving technique used by almost companies, but you can see that some companies do not adopt this technique. So, but by default you can have this assumption. Data assumption also should be based on the collection for reliable data and correct statistical analysis of the data. If you have a data assumption, it means immediately you are going to use statistics. If you use statistics, the probabilities will be also be there. So it means that the result of statistics and the probability won't give 100% real data. So there must be assumption. It means that the data are not 100% the same as the data in the real system. Here we are going to use a goodness of fit test, like the one we used previously in the chi-square test. So the third one is validation input-output transformation. So the ultimate test of the model's ability to predict the future behavior of the real system. When here another test is test which will predict how the system will behave when you have modified something inside the system. How? When the model input data match the use inputs. When you are having the model inputs and those model inputs match the real system inputs. If they match, okay, you can predict how the system will behave. If or the model inputs in the real system inputs are the same, or a policy using the model is implemented at some point later in the system. If you are having a policy using the model, you can predict how the system will behave, or when the policy is not used, how the system will behave. You have to predict everything. Or the level of input variable modified in this phase of validation process. The model is viewed as an input-output transformation. You can modify variables. If you modify variables, you are transforming the input, the variable input. If you modify variable input, also the output of those variables will change. So you have to check everything. So the model accepts a value from an input parameter and transforms the input into output a measure of performance. It is what I told you. It means that the model will accept some value from the input parameter, and then it will transform the value into the output. So if you change anything, the output will change. So there must be a condition for validation for input-output transformations that some version of the system under static exists, so that the system data satisfying at least one of the set of input conditions can be connected to compare with the model prediction. Here you can predict how the system will behave. So you can have some data and check those data to see if they satisfy one of the condition, and then use them to predict the model behavior if one of the data is applied to the system. If the system is planning stage, no system operating data can be collected. Complete input-output validation is not possible. It means that if you are still in the planning stage, it means that you are at the first stage, so you don't have any system which is operating, but you are not collecting data. Even input-output validation is not possible because there is nothing there. You don't have data. So validation will increase when you have done validation correctly, this will increase your confidence. Why? Because you will be sure that your system is accurate. So when you change something in the computerized representation of the system, it can be minor or major. You have a minor change or major change in your simulation or in your computerized representation. What will happen? So minor change of single numerical parameters such as the speed of the machine, arrival rate of the custom. You can have minor change of this one. You can have minor change in the form of statistical distribution such as distribution of service time or minor failure of the machine. You can change some parameters. For example, you can say, we're saying, for example, you have changed some values in the mean will change. There can be some major change in the logical structure of some systems that change in a queue discipline from waiting line model or change in scheduling rule of a job. You can change many things. You can also change, you can have changes in the different design of the new system, such as computerized inventory control system replacing a non-computerized. So these are the different type of change you can perform in your system. So there's changes either minor or major. These changes will have some effects. We have some effects on your computerized representation of the system. So you have to be very careful. You have to be very careful. So input output validation using Turing. We can test, we can validate input and output using a Turing test. Normally, statistical tests are used to compare model output with the system output. So in normally it means that generally statistical test will be used to compare your model output with the system output. So the system output, the model output is what you have designed. The system output, it is the real system. So you are going to use statistical test. So statistical test may sometimes may not be applicable. Sometimes you can try to apply statistical model and to compare model and put in a system output, but it won't be possible. So here you will use enough people or professionals who have enough knowledge about the system behavior, who know the system, how the system behave, and you are going to use them so that they help you to compare the model output with the system output. If you use a statistical test and you see that it is not possible, you ask the professionals who will help you. For example, using a Turing test means a test which is going to test the ability of someone to answer or do something intelligently. For example, let's say an example how you can use a Turing test to see if someone is a professional or not. For example, suppose that 5 reports of the system performance of 5 different days are prepared. So the simulation output data are used to produce 5 fake reports. We are having 5 reports which shows the performance of the system in 5 different days. So the simulation output data are used to produce 5 fake reports. So you have a simulation data which produces 5 fake reports. So the 10 reports should be in. Here you are having 5 reports. which are correct, and 5 fake reports. So the total is 10 reports. The 10 reports should be in an exactly the same format. Those reports are exactly the same format, and they contain relevant data. So they are almost the same. There is if you are reading them, you see that there is no difference between them. So the 10 reports are randomly shuffled. You take the 10 reports and you mix them. For example, you can mix them and then you throw them in the air, and then you let them fall down, and then give it to the engineer. You give them to the engineer. It means that when they fall down, they be mixed. If they are mixed, the fake ones will be mixed with the real, the correct one. So you will give them to the engineer, and you ask him to decide which report are fake and which are real. If you want to test that engineer, you are going to give him the mixed correct report and the fake ones, and you are able to see if he is able to differentiate them. If the engineer identifies a substantial number of fake reports, if he is able to identify the fake reports, the model builder questions the engineer. He will ask you as a modeler. So then after that, the model builder will question the engineer and use the information again to improve the model. After the engineer responds to the questions of the model builder, the model builder will get a very nice information which will help him improve the model. But if the engineer cannot distinguish between fake and real reports with any consistency, the modeler will conclude that this test provides no evidence for model inadequacy. Here it means that if the engineer cannot distinguish the fake reports and the correct one, it means that our model is 100% accurate. So it means that our model is okay. But if we can differentiate them, it means that our model is not accurate, so we have to revise it. So here previously I talked about to check how if the engineer is the correct one or is professional. Okay, you can use it to test the engineer also. But this type of test, the objective is check if the engineer can distinguish the fake ones and the real one. So if he can't do that, so it means that our model is 100% accurate. Okay, it is very good. We will be able to apply this model to our simulation or to our system study. So this type of validation test is a common record, this is a Turing test. It can be used as a valuable tool to detect model inadequacies and eventually increasing model credibility as the model is improved and refined. Here it can be used as a tool to check if a model is adequate or not, and then we will be increasing the model credibility to see that it has the problem. If there are some problem, you have to improve it and refine it. If no problem, okay, it is okay. So this model is a very nice one, or it can be a final step in testing the model adequacy. So, dear students, here we are at the end of the subject. If you are here, it means that you have, if you have read every concept in this subject and you are here at the end, congratulations. So here I have prepared some exercises. There are some more problem and down there are answers. This is the second question. Down you have answers, so you have to read those questions and you have to read those answers and then you have to understand them. After that, in the final exam, you will pick some question from these exercises. So you are lucky that I have provided answers. So you go through those exercises and then you read the answers, and also you have to go through all examples which have been provided in the word subject, and then you make sure that you have read every and each concept. After that, you will be ready for the examination. Okay, good luck. Thank you.